Good day everyone! We are now going to discuss about solving problems involving hypothesis testing part 2. First problem. A researcher used a developed problem-solving test to randomly select 50 grade 6 pupils. In this sample, x bar or the sample mean is equal to 80 and sample standard deviation is equal to 10. The mean mu and the standard deviation of the population used in the standardization of the test were 75 and 15 respectively. Use 95% confidence level to answer the following questions. Number 1. Does the sample mean differ significantly from the population mean? Can it be said that the sample is above average? Given n is equal to 50, mu or the population mean is 75, alpha or level of significance is 1 minus 0.95 which is equal to 0.05. Population standard deviation is 15, x bar or the sample mean is 80. Formulation of null and alternative hypothesis. HO, mu is equal to 75. H1, mu is not equal to 75. That is because it is stated that the sample mean differ significantly from the population mean. Level of significance, alpha is equal to 0.05. Select the appropriate and compute test statistic. So we will use Z since n is greater than or equal to 30. So x bar minus mu over sigma multiplied by square root of n is equal to 80 minus 75 over 15 multiplied by square root of 50 which is equal to 5 over 2.12. So Z is equal to 2.36. Establish the critical region or regions. Based on the H1 or alternative hypothesis, this is a two-tailed test with critical regions negative Z alpha over 2 is less than Z alpha over 2, where Z alpha over 2 is equal to Z 0.05 over 2 which is equal to Z 0.025. So Z 0.025 is 1.96 based on the table. The critical region is illustrated below. Make a statistical decision. Since 2.36 is greater than 1.96, HO or the null hypothesis is rejected. From the illustration, 2.36 lies within the critical region. Draw the appropriate conclusion. There is enough evidence to conclude to reject the null hypothesis. Interpretation. There is enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis. There is a significant difference between the sample mean and the population mean. Number 2 problem. It has been reported that average credit card debt for middle-class men is 3,262 pesos. Another researcher conducted a research of 50 middle-class men and finds that the average debt is 2,995 and the population standard deviation is 1,100. Let's conduct the test based on a type 1 error of alpha is equal to 0.05. Given n is equal to 50, population mean is equal to 3,262, level of significance is 0.05, population standard deviation is 1,100, and sample mean is equal to 2,995. Formulation of null and alternative hypothesis. HO. mu is equal to 3,262. H1, mu is less than 3,262. Level of significance, alpha is equal to 0.05. Select the appropriate and compute test statistic. Z is equal to x bar minus mu over standard deviation multiplied by square root of n. So we will use z-test since n is greater than or equal to 30. So that is 2,995 minus 3,262 over 1,100 multiplied by square root of 50. So z is equal to negative 1.72. Let's establish the critical region or regions. Based on the alternative hypothesis, this is a one-tailed test or the left-tailed test with critical region z is less than z alpha, where z alpha is equal to z 0.05, which is equal to negative 1.64. The critical region or the shaded part is illustrated below. Make a statistical decision. Since negative 1.72 is less than negative 1.65 is true, HO is rejected. From the illustration, negative 1.72 lies within the critical region. Draw the appropriate conclusion. So there is enough evidence to conclude to reject the null hypothesis. Third problem. The Medical Rehabilitation Education Foundation reports that the average cost of rehabilitation for stroke victims is $24,672. To see if the average cost of rehab is different at a particular hospital, a researcher selects a random sample of 35 stroke victims at the hospital and finds the average cost of the rehab is $25,250. The standard deviation of the population is 3,251. At alpha is equal to 0.01, it can be concluded that the average cost of stroke rehabilitation at a particular hospital is different from 24,672. Given n is equal to 35, mu or the mean or the population mean is 24,672. Alpha or level of significance is 0.01. Standard deviation, population standard deviation is 3,251. X bar or sample mean is 25,250. Formulation of null and alternative hypothesis. HO. Mu is equal to 24,672. H1 or alternative hypothesis is mu is not equal to 24,672. Level of significance. Alpha is equal to 0.01. Select the appropriate and compute test statistic. So we will use the z-test since the number of samples is greater than or equal to 30. So x bar minus mu over standard deviation or sigma multiplied by square root of n, which is equal to 25,250 minus 24,672 over 3,251 multiplied by square root of 35. So that is 578 over 3,251 multiplied by square root of 35. That is 0.17779 multiplied by square root of 35. So z is equal to 1.05. Establish the critical region or regions. Based on the alternative hypothesis, this is a two-tailed test with critical regions negative z alpha over 2 is less than z alpha over 2, where z alpha over 2 is equal to z 0.01 over 2, which is equal to z 0.005, which is equal to 2.58. The critical region is illustrated below. Make a statistical decision. Since 1.05 is less than 2.58, the null hypothesis is not rejected. From the illustration, 1.05 lies within the acceptance region. Draw the appropriate conclusion. There is not enough evidence to conclude to reject the null hypothesis. Now here are the references. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Please subscribe to Analyze Math for more.